intend to do with the money. But I'd like to, I do understand you're saying, and the fact that, there were folks that said, gosh, we could have much more money into our communities. And I recognize Okanagan County is challenged. Frankly, most of our communities in the 7th District are challenged. But what I saw in the building of the budget, by the way, that already spent $5 billion more than it took in, was Okanagan County didn't win. And, if you talk about indigent defense and the things that our county has to meet certain standards, desperate for help from the state to meet those standards because of the cost passed on to the county, not one dime went to that. So, and there are other things for our school districts. Levy equalization funding is an issue that helps our property poor school districts be able to equalize the kind of education opportunities they're able to give the kids in our communities. That funding was cut. And there are many more examples. When you think of behavioral health, things that are needed. And they're good things. I'm not saying they're bad things. The problem is there's no guarantee that the money that comes into the state is going to be spent the way that you would like to see it spent in Okanagan County. And it's sometimes it doesn't go for those foundational things that I talked about. You think of programs for developmental disabled individuals. You talk about low-income housing. You talk about other things that are very valuable and needed. And you're relying on individuals who may have other priorities, or they may want to do the very newest thing, right? And so you're competing with state employees for wage increases. You're competing with all of these things, and to be honest, a lot of it goes into the urban areas. But you think of the challenges our firefighters have, our fire districts and things like that. Like there's all kinds of foundational things that we believe. Ambulance service is another one that's a huge issue where ambulances are being challenged all throughout our district to provide, emergency medical assistance. It's those, and Medicaid, folks that are part of Apple Health. If the reimbursement to the providers isn't enough for providers to see that person, that card's worth nothing. That card that says they've got insurance is worth nothing. So I think it depends on the priorities of those individuals writing the budget. And again, I point those things not to say that they're good or bad or indifferent, but I just wanted to offer that because we've seen budgets over the years where, sometimes our communities do receive really good assistance. And then other times they don't. And the income tax, there's no guarantee that that's going to provide, more into our communities, especially given that if it survives, they've already said they've allocated $2.3 billion of the $2.7 billion that they expect to raise from that first initial income tax should it survive. They've already got it booked into the budget that they just passed. And so that's for things they're spending now, which maybe means it doesn't go to indigent defense that Okanagan County needs so badly, to make sure that people receive the kind of legal help that they deserve, right, as an individual, regardless of their ability to pay. And so it just depends. And we just haven't seen it because we're not doing those foundational core budgets where maybe the money should be saved for a rainy day in case there are huge issues that do come up, depending on what those might be. So I do understand what you're saying, but I'm not sure that money is going to be a guarantee that it's going to come here.
All right, you had some great questions. Who else has a question? Let's take Tegan.
A question on both of those bills, the sheriff's bill and the income tax. Have either one of them been signed? Are either one of them, if they haven't been on the calendar, to be signed? And do you anticipate some type of line item veto on either one of them?
I could speculate, but I haven't seen either one of them on the list to be signed. As far as whether he would line item veto anything, my suspicion is no, but I don't know.
I saw some I saw some published media reports about, I think, Waspic requesting a line item veto of the sheriff's bill. Frankly, I'll be surprised if there's any sort of line item veto of either bill. I expect the governor to sign both of them, unfortunately.
How long does he have to sign?
April 4th.
April 4th?
Yeah.
That sounds right. Yeah.
And actually, if he doesn't veto them outright or take action, they can actually become law after a certain period of time without him signing them. He would have to do that. If he actively vetoes it, then that's his decision, but if he doesn't sign them, they can still, without his signature, become law after a certain period of time. And I apologize, I think it's like 60 days, I think, but I'd have to check into that.
I think it's automatic, we have a 90 days after adjournment.
Yeah, it could be. It could be. So he could choose not to sign them, but I don't think he'll do that. So, did you have questions, sir?
I would go back to Hunter and the miles driven.
Yeah.
I think our government's already big enough in the state, and it's gonna take a big department to monitor something like that. Do they ever consider how much that's gonna cost?
So, great question. Yeah, I mean, you know, we do get a what they call a fiscal note with every bill that's supposed to have an estimate about how much it's going to cost, and it's sort of interesting. We joke, and even legislators on the other side, you know, will joke about, you know, if a department, you know, really hates a bill, they attach a huge fiscal note to it. It'll be super expensive to carry this out. That's their way of trying to kill the bill. I don't immediately recall what the fiscal note was for road usage charge, but I think you're right. I mean, to implement a program like that, it's going to cost a lot of money. One thing that I thought that was very interesting on the same overall subject of you know, costs for bills is that on the income tax bill, that Department of Revenue estimated they'd have to hire 150 new revenue agents. So basically, Washington State will have its own IRS in order to implement and execute this income tax bill. But yeah, good question. Other questions? Sorry? Stacy, we're going to go. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm trying to get people who haven't asked questions yet. Yes, ma'am.
Is the income tax based on gross or net income? And is it creating a whole web of deductions like we have on the national income tax? B&O tax is on gross receipts. And if this income tax is also on gross income, that becomes a lot bigger of a problem for people like builders and truckers, because you deal with a lot of cash, but then you pay out an awful lot of expenses, and sometimes at the end of the year, there really isn't a whole lot of income left on the net part. So,
yeah. Great question. So it's pegged to the adjusted income for purposes of the federal income tax. Yes, sir.
So Hunter, a big thing that we've had problems with here in Oconee County and across the state is homeowners insurance because of the fires and all of those things going on. We've got a lot of people that have had their insurance drop, but then on trying to sell their homes for them, a lot of times we can't close on the sale because we can't procure insurance. I haven't seen a whole lot of movement from the insurance commissioner on fixing that.
This is a huge issue. To take maybe lead on this, I might turn it over to Senator Shore, because we were talking about this earlier today. I know you were leading on this session.
No, great question. It's huge for everybody.
Yeah.
And I mean, even people who are purchasing property trying to build a home and they can't. So the insurance commissioner led on a work group that Andrew and I were part of, and it was really designed to bring stakeholders in and look at, you know, what different states were doing to address this issue, hear from people who have been in the throes of significant wildfire like Paradise, California, heard from the mayor, and, you know, obviously the insurance industry was part of that too. But it was really trying to say, where do we go forward as a state, and how do we begin to address this issue? And one of the things that we really coalesced around was, first of all, transparency of information on how they even determine that you're in a wildfire risk zone and should or should not have coverage, or if it is, it's exorbitant. And the other piece of that was really, well, if people are taking, if they're taking appropriate steps to protect their property and really do mitigation on their own communities, fire districts, the state, and all of that, there should be credit for that. That should be in the form of reduced rates or access to insurance, more importantly, for those who haven't had it. And the bill didn't survive session. She led on that. It was Senate Bill 5928. And then there was another bill that was 6079, which was designed as kind of a pilot project to see if some homeowners would like to, take on those kind of building standards with some help, financial help, take them through the process and see if that was even, workable. The thing we didn't want to do with the bills is create things that people couldn't do, right? It doesn't do any good to put standards out there when people are unable to meet them. But what we learned is, a community can start doing things, and it doesn't take everybody in the community to do them, but if there is a significant number stepping forward and they can reduce that risk, then in other states, the insurance companies have actually recognized that. It's taken time. And
we had homes in city limits
right.
with a fire hydrant in the front yard that we could not get insurance on.
One of the initial things I thought of is they just want to get out of the homeowner's insurance business. I mean, you kind of feel that way, right? That they, and which worries me because people have mortgages. I mean, you need the insurance. I think the challenge is really challenging the insurance industry, not to just to say no, but say, hey, you're in the risk business. That's what insurance industries are. You're in the risk business. You can't expect homeowners and communities and businesses and things like that to bear all the risk. Insurance companies have some of that risk as well. And so it's finding that balance. We think that the bills are a good start in the direction, Rocky. We're gonna come back with them. They set good templates. I was really bummed that they didn't get through session because I know this is a huge issue for everybody. And we're still very committed. We're gonna push it next year. It's gonna be my #1 priority.
Go ahead.
The new topic.
Yep.
The upcoming primary to replace Honorable Newhouse, who's not running again. I think I saw in the paper there are 4 people at the upcoming Orville forum. It looks like 1 Democrat and 4 Republicans. That's what we had 4 years ago, where a Democrat with 20% made it, because he was the only one, made it into the top 2. And the Republican was Dan Newhouse, had 20 point something, and 2 other Republicans had 20 point something. There was a bill has been in the legislature for ranked choice voting, which is a solution for this. So that instead of having a Democrat and a Republican on the November ballot, each with only getting 20% of the primary vote, we'll have probably in this district 2 Republicans, 2 strong Republicans to debate, who would win in a ranked choice voting situation, and they would be the ones who would be on the November ballot. Does this resonate with you guys?
Well, when I first heard about ranked choice voting, I thought it was a really interesting idea, and I still do. It's in theory, it's a great idea to help give people choices and make sure that the person who's most supported by the public gets elected. However, in practicality, the places that have tried it, it doesn't seem like it's really worked out because a lot of people get, they're voting fatigue. There's so many names on a ballot. There's so many different races. Oftentimes, they don't use it the way it's designed, and so my concern is that the ranked choice voting, for what we've seen, I don't have confidence that it would accurately reflect the majority of the voters' desired outcomes. So I think in theory it's good, but I don't think we're ready to try to implement it and have it be accurate. Either you want to weigh in on that?
So similar to Andrew, first kind of learning about ranked choice voting seems somewhat intriguing. 2 thoughts on this though, however, in addition to what Andrew articulated. One is the jurisdictions that are utilizing it often find considerable amounts of confusion among the population that's voting about the mechanics of ranked choice voting, whereas the system we have now called first past the post is very intuitive, it's very simple. And frankly, it only really becomes a problem if you've got a kind of a plethora of candidates out there. So in my mind, the answer is really not changing the voting system. Instead, it's trying to engage in some sort of winnowing process to have fewer candidates running. And I think there's lots of ways we can get involved in the political process rather than everybody filing for the same race, if that makes sense.
Who does the winnowing?
Who does the winnowing? Well, there's traditionally the parties have had roles in trying to winnow the number of candidates that are out there. Friends, family, loved ones end up playing a role in this to encourage people to run or not to run. But really the dynamics that you're describing only really come into play when you've got a large number of people on the ballot. And sometimes that happens, and it can result in sometimes some of the dynamics that you're describing. But I don't think ranked choice voting is the answer to that. I think it, frankly, first past the post, which is really what we've had since the beginning of our country, works pretty darn well. Other questions? Yes, sir.
Not necessarily questions, comments on the, I'm actually Okanagan County Commissioner. On the millionaire's tax, they initially promised us 5 to 7% of the total amount of that for public defense. Last second pulled it, so we get less than nothing. The flip side of that is there's also sales tax exemptions for hygiene and I think diapers and a few things, which I don't have an issue with that, but that also subtracts statewide about $200 million of income to counties. So it's a loss and a loss for Okanagan County, potentially. As Rocky was talking about the fire coverage or insurance coverage, I don't know if any of you are very familiar with the Fire Ratings Bureau, which is ran by the insurance companies. Right. The problem we have with that is they do not care what, I'm also a volunteer fire. So our department is one of the quickest responses, lowest dollar per capita loss departments in the state. And we are barely maintaining a rating of 6. So I had a meeting, I think it's 4 years ago, when I was still mayor of Orville, with the Fire and Ratings Bureau. Basically, they do not care about any statistics. It's the amount of equipment you have. So we could go out and buy $10 million worth of equipment. It would all sit in a garage, and we could be a 1. And that is infecting all of your insurance rates. It has nothing to do with our coverage and our responses and our per capita loss. It's just them sitting up there and saying, everybody needs this. If everybody has everything, then we'll give you a number 1, which is the lowest rate.
So penalizing rural.
Penalizing any department that cannot afford to be top of the line, but yeah, rural, basically. Yeah.
All right, thank you very much. Other questions? Well, I haven't forgotten you, ma'am. I know, I just didn't see somebody hasn't asked questions. Yes, ma'am.
Yes. First of all, I guess I have 2 points here. First of all, I want to thank each one of you for the work you have done for us. I'm Nancy Nash Mendez. I have been a resident of this county for over 30 years, and I have the honor of serving as the Executive Director of the Housing Authority. You guys have been stellar in helping us move forward the needs of housing and healthcare and education. I know this has been a very, very tough session. I also want to thank you for your staff's responsiveness. Anytime we connected with them, they are just on top of things. So thank you for your service. Now, my question is, this was a short session, and it was ferocious. Looking forward, what are you seeing coming your way? And do you have any special bills that you are thinking to introduce in the next longer session? Thank you.
That is a big question. And thanks, Nancy. I always appreciate seeing you in Olympia. And I'm on the housing committee. Nancy does incredible work for Okanagan County to ensure that rural areas are taken into account for the housing needs. Thinking about next session, though, I've got a number of things. One related to housing is, Washington's energy code for housing has dramatically increased the price of housing. and particularly increased it even more for the entry-level smaller houses than it has for moderate and larger houses, largely because in order to meet the insulation requirements in a roof, you got to redesign the roof system. So I had it built this year, which I'm going to reintroduce next year with as many changes as I can get to improve its passability. But it would say for small houses, if the builder can demonstrate to the local code official that it would take an excessively long time for meeting the code to pencil out in energy savings, it would give the local building department the authority to approve plans under the previous code. So it doesn't completely exempt you from code, but it just says we can take a step back for portions of it that don't financially make sense. So that's one. There's other stuff I've got working on around cottage food, around harvest of timber around utility lines to reduce liability, and wildfire and other things. But it could take me all day if I talked about all my ideas.
So God bless you for that question. We've been out of session 6 days. No, it's all good. I think, for me, first of all, is the issues around wildfire risk and dealing with the insurance companies. When I worked on healthcare issues, specifically for access to rural pharmacy, independent pharmacy, it took me 8 years, very bipartisan work with now the insurance commissioner. Super proud of our work. That took 8 years because they are a very well-funded lobby, but we won in the end. But anyway, we'll continue the wildfire risk work and making sure that we understand how things are working in that space, both for communities, for our fire districts, just for conservation districts. They're huge partners as well in this. So that's, I'm the ranking Republican on the Senate Ag and Natural Resources Committee. And so we see a lot of these kinds of issues also in the Environment Committee. We see a lot relative to our energy systems and our electricity needs and transmission. Those will continue to be issues. But one other one that we haven't talked about tonight is the Fish and Wildlife Commission. And that has been a huge issue for anyone who wants to see better management of wildlife and predators and making sure that our communities are safe. And I admit I've been talking with the chair of the committee. I think he would like to see the commission go back to under the governor's purview, so the governor would hire the director of Fish and Wildlife. I'm not sure I'm quite there, but the commission that we have right now is a disaster. It's getting better, but they're a public entity and they're under the Public Records Act, and their responsibility is to stay, public, so the public can be engaged and can have access to the information. There's question right now under investigation whether or not they have been doing things on private computers and in other meetings, and I know that's going to sort itself out, but I just really want to make sure that I love our wildlife, and I want to make sure that they do well and that we have populations that we can both enjoy to watch, to hunt, but I also want our ranchers and our homeowners to have important tools at times too, which we don't have in this state. So for our committee, that's going to be a huge issue. Number 3 is the financial viability of our agricultural operations and our families, our farm families. There was a bill, and I wish it had passed, and that gets back to Hunter's point, where when an agency doesn't like a bill, they put a high cost on it. And this particular bill was introduced by Senator Ron Mazzal. And what it really just said is state agencies, you have to have a better understanding of your impacts of your policies on agricultural producers, right? So it didn't mean they didn't do their rules or didn't do their programs, but it said they had to do it in a way to minimize the impact to agriculture. And really, we have laws in the state and actually federally that do that for small business right now. They have to minimize impacts on small business, both at the federal level and at the state level, and this made it specifically for agriculture. And so, it's just the amount of regulation that we see coming down on our farm communities is insane. And the only thing that really has been a bright spot, and I say it this way because folks who are food insecure understand that our farmers are really important local partners. We've seen it all up and down the valley, in the Methow Valley and all of that. They help food banks, they help schools, they do all of that. And folks, that's been the tide of people in the legislature who don't understand agriculture and what it takes. It's connected them, which is a good thing. But we need to do one more than that. We need to say, how can they stay viable? We want a clean environment. We all want that. We want clean water, all of those things. But doggone it, the amount of regulation that has come down upon them is insane. It's just insane, and we're losing our generational farmers. Just absolutely. So there's going to be a lot of more work in that space that I think, even though I don't have a proposed policy right now, I would love to see Senator Mazzal's bill go through, because finally it would tell Fish and Wildlife, Department of Ecology, and probably DNR that, look, when you look at doing things, you have to look at it in the eye of minimizing that impact. And I think that would be a first start. There's more to do, but thank you for the question, Nancy.
Yeah, just really briefly, some of the bills that I think will likely be coming back in the long session that did not advance this session, the environmental crimes bill, I think will likely come back. I think we'll likely see a series of anti-Second Amendment bills. There's a locked storage box requirement bill that did not advance this session. I think we'll likely see those come back. As far as things that I'm working on, in general, trying to work on bills that will improve and strengthen the quality of life in rural areas in northeast and north central Washington. I've got some bills that I've previously introduced, I anticipate introducing again, around judicial reform, around law enforcement hiring, which, by the way, I see a number of law enforcement officials and first responders in the back room. Thank you all very much for what you do. Thank you for being here, really appreciate it. And then I've got kind of a passion project bill I'm working on as well to create a memorial on the state capitol campus for U.S. service members who died in the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. So those are some things I'm working on. We've got, 9 more months here to kind of keep thinking a little bit over the course of the summer and the fall about specific legislation we can do that will be helpful to this area, this district.
Hunter, can you tell what you and I think Andrew might have written it, but what you did for a local veteran here?
This was pretty cool, yeah, thank you for that. Thank you, Rocky. I didn't give you money to ask the question, but thank you. So many of you may know Dean Brazel up in Oroville, a gentleman who's 99 years old now, will turn 100 years old on July 4th of this year, so coinciding with the 250th anniversary of the founding of the United States. Local, well-beloved veteran, served in World War II, was shot at, bombed, and nearly had his ship sunk out from under him. Has led a storied life, very much beloved. Andrew and I were really privileged to author a House resolution in his honor from the Washington State House of Representatives, and we're privileged to go up and give that to Mr. Brazel within this last week. So that's a neat thing. That's one thing that we can do, even in the minority, is we can shine a spotlight on individuals and entities in our district that are doing extraordinary things, and he's just a great example. And I want to thank you, Rocky, for bringing this gentleman to my attention. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Can you talk about your private burial ground or burials on private property? Can you kind of, it passed, right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, happy to talk about this. So this is House Bill 2239. It's a bill that I know the 7th District team has been working on in the past. It's a bill that came up over the course of a number of years, but what it would do is that it allows for the burial or the placement of human remains in they call a columbarium. There's some faith traditions that have above ground burial. It allows it to take place on private property with certain restrictions, various setbacks from roads and water and property lines and that sort of thing. Washington State was really unique in that 47 other states permit it. Washington State did not. In order to bury somebody or place human remains in Washington until this bill, the remains either had to go into a public cemetery or to a private cemetery, but private cemeteries are really hard to establish. There's huge financial hurdles to establishing a private cemetery, and so this allows the creation of family burial grounds. It's really important for a couple of communities, farmers and ranchers, who maybe they live the vast majority of their lives there on the ranch, and they really want to be buried on the South 40 rather than buried at the cemetery out in town. So this is a way to deepen and strengthen that family connection with that ground. and then also our tribal communities are very strongly in favor of it. So was really happy with it. Gosh, it was a battle in the Senate, wasn't it? You know, it was really interesting because it flew out of the House and it made it over to the Senate, and it just kind of got stuck. And sort of the informal word I heard back, you know, kind of sheepishly from one of the Senate leaders, not Senator Short, who worked tirelessly on behalf of it, but one of the folks in the majority kind of came back, he's looking a little sheepish, like, I don't know, Hunter, I just have a lot of members who just find the whole concept weird. You know, and I had to explain to them that, well, it's probably not a lot of people are going to be doing this in Hunts Point or Medina or, you know, Kirkland or Bellevue, right? This is an OMAC idea. This is a Republic idea, an Inchaleem idea, and a Colville idea. And so we ended up having to really engage in a lot of really negotiation, but also, you know, education. Really a lot of education. Senator Short did magnificent work on that. So thank you so much for the question. Appreciate it.
It's more of a comment. I've been hearing a lot of concern around insurance in this room, and we can see it's happening to many in this community that the insurance companies are very happy to profit off of our misfortune, but when the going gets tough, they'll fail. And this is just as true of healthcare CEOs, healthcare insurance CEOs, as it is of home insurance CEOs. Healthcare CEOs make about 444 times the amount of money the average Okanagan County resident makes, and yet they profit immensely. It would be a lot more efficient if we were to remove the profits going to the very top that help no one in this county, and rather than having a bunch of different insurance companies that are all siphoning away, profiting at every moment, it's all combined into one, reducing administrative bloat and allowing us to actually get the health care that we need. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much. We appreciate that. We are concerned too.
Yes. Hi, I'm Chris. I'm from Mid-Valley Hospital and Clinic. So with everything that's happening with like the federal HR1, the state budgets, you know, obviously those of us in healthcare are extremely concerned, especially in rural communities, about, you know, just more money being funneled away from us. We already kind of live on the edge. We've always lived on the edge. We're used to living on the edge. But I think the edge is crumbling away from us a little more than we've been seeing in the last 30 years. I'm 35 years in healthcare, 30 years in rural. And so, you know, a couple of the things that you saw, I think, in this session were, you know, the 340B. Very, 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 I can't stress how important that is to us. The charity care. We're very concerned about, you know, further enhancements to charity care. And for those in the room, that's money that we just have to pretty much write off. You know, so we just give away care on our dime. And, you know, we are concerned because, you know, our costs aren't any lower than metropolitan or urban areas. I still have to pay physicians what they think they're worth. I still have to buy saline from the same vendors that they have to use. You know, it's really important to understand too that, you know, not only is Mid-Valley and any rural healthcare, obviously a place where people receive their healthcare, it's also a major economic driver of the community. We employ 310 people in this community. And so think about the number of taxpayers, the kids in school, all of those things. And so, you know, I'm starting to see now where, you know, East Adams Hospital in Ritzville almost went bankrupt. They were literally moments away from bankruptcy. Ferry County's hospital had to take out loans just to make their payroll. And we haven't hit the worst of the cuts coming that are going to be approaching us with HR1. So I guess my question for the three of you is, how much of a conversation can you have or do you have with the healthcare authority? They're going to be receiving a bulk of the Rural Health Transformation Program funds. We still have no idea how that's going to be given to communities or facilities. We don't know if some of it is going to go to rural or metropolitan areas. We're very concerned about that. But also it's, you know, talking about how these these seemingly smaller programs really affect us. Again, if 340B went away, we would have lost about, $500,000 in savings that we received through the pharmacy benefit. That $500,000, we'd have to make up some charity care. As it stands, we are writing off approximately $5 to $7 million every year. That's a lot of money for us little places. So understand that every little incremental thing just feels like another piece of the cliff rock is falling away from us. So can you explain, and Senator Short, I know you've been a healthcare, you've been a healthcare advocate for a very long time. I'm originally from Newport. I remember seeing you there. You'd come often, you'd listen to us. We very much appreciate your support. So you guys as freshmen, hopefully sophomores, what can you tell us about how you can support healthcare and how you can prevent us from falling off the cliff?
Big question on a very big topic, right? And I serve on the healthcare committee, and I know, Chris, we've talked before. So many challenges, and of course, there's been a lot of questions about healthcare tonight and insurance and other things. As you know, and everybody who works in it, healthcare is very convoluted. The healthcare itself is not that complicated, but how we pay for it, all the complicated things is challenging. And the legislature is challenging too. I find it interesting the number of healthcare special interests and lobbyists that. There's some pretty weird policies, honestly, and it's hard to pass good quality, clean policies. We had some this year that were really good around allowing nurse transports for interfacility transports. We had That'll Help Republic. We had my RadTech healthcare bill that passed that also is mostly helping Republic extremely rural areas, but it could someday be important in Okanagan County. When you're talking about 340B, that was a huge controversy this year. There was two 340B pharmacy benefit pieces. One was the governor's proposal to go to a fee-for-service that would have been really devastating to the program. The other was a 340B bill that could potentially improve opportunities for FQHCs and hospitals. There's a lot of complication here. As you know, I'm working harder on the healthcare issues than really anything else because it is big, complicated, and rural is unique. We have 8 hospitals in the 7th legislative district, which is maybe not a record. I think the 9th might have one more than us, but there's a lot. And so there's just a lot to that. I know we had the prior authorization bill this year that will help with, and the timely payments bill. So there's a number of things that actually happen that could be helpful. One of the challenges we have is a lot of the urban legislators, particularly the Democrats, have this weird philosophy about hospitals, like they think they're rich and that there's a place they should go after. I know one of the rural Democrats that I get along with really well one day, he told me, I don't know why so many of my fellow Democrats just hate hospitals. And I think part of it is because if you're in Seattle and you've got Harborview or some of these other really big hospitals, they see them as lots of money flows through there, and a lot of money does flow through there. But in our rural areas, these hospitals aren't just wealthy places. They're places that if they go out of business, it's a matter of life and death for many of our residents. So it's really important to protect our rural healthcare system. And it is complicated. We talk about Medicaid, and the low Medicaid reimbursement rate is a huge challenge. That's a challenge with the idea of increasing who's on Medicaid. So anyways, it's a really complex, and I know Chris will talk more at some point. I know we're running out of time. I don't know if anybody else wants to weigh in on this, but I know we definitely want to get to this last question, and we need to give some closing remarks, summaries of what we did this year. Yes, ma'am.
I'd like your perspective on how we're preventing voter fraud in Washington State.
Perspective on how we are preventing voter fraud in Washington State.
What's being done, or is there anything being done, or?
Well, here at the statewide level, there's not a lot of initiatives at the statewide level addressing voter fraud. I know USDOJ has been asking for information from the Secretary of State's office that's designed to address concerns about the accuracy of the voter rolls and trying to prevent voter fraud. As you know, our county auditors are the election officials for each county. I mean, the best way to prevent voter fraud is to ensure that we've got good, strong, independent county auditors there with good, strong election teams. I think our elections.
I'm not so concerned about us. I'm concerned about King County, Pierce County, Snohomish County,
Yeah.
and so on.
I think the short answer is very little is taking place on the state level. Pretty much any action is taking at the federal level with USDOJ. We've been going a little while here, folks. I think what we're going to do is some closing comments here. I am going to stay around a little bit longer. I know we all have a drive. I think for the purposes of kind of pulling this to a close, that'll be the end of our questions right now. But again, I'll stay around longer.
I just have a comment and a concern, please.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
I don't know who you guys are. I don't know anything about you. I want to know if you're for city officials or for we the people. Our city council created a core program and then a Team 1 was created. The Team 1 and some of the city workers were very abusive to our homeless community and our regular community members. This is very disturbing. The Team 1 and the core program went away, and now after seeing the agenda from March 2nd, which I missed, it looks like the city wants to hire a new team coordinator, which concerns me. This deals with being inhumane and behavioral health. I ask that you please look into this matter and reassure us that the abuse will not continue. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. All right, so with that, what I'd like to do is I'd like to just conclude with some comments that I made at the beginning. I really want to thank all of you for coming out tonight. It's really meaningful. It's helpful for us to hear directly from you. You know, these town halls don't work if we only hear from the Amen Corner. We need to hear from people who have different perspectives as well. So those of you who raised issues or concerns where it seems like we gave you a response that maybe you didn't like, thank you for that. That's part of the process. That's how this works. So thank you all very, very much. I very much deeply appreciate it. I know I enjoy town halls as a rule. It's an opportunity for us to come back and talk with normal people about normal issues. It's a chance for us to give you updates about what we're working on. Before I forget, I do want to take a moment and to acknowledge and recognize some of our staff members who are here this evening. Ask Rebecca and Nora to raise your hands back over there. These are frankly some of the best parts of working in this position, of serving in this position. These two ladies are just absolutely wonderful. If you can't reach us for any reason, please reach out to them. And I know Shannon does outstanding work in your office as well. But both Shannon and Nora live here in Okanagan County, right? And so you'll see them around. So I wanted to acknowledge them. I just also wanted to say it's an honor to serve you. Thank you for this privilege. I don't take it lightly. So with that, I'll turn it over to Andrew.
Well, thank you so much for coming out. It's encouraging to see a large crowd here on a weeknight that I'm sure all of you had other things you'd like to do as well. It's a sunny weeknight. That's right. That's right. And so but it is encouraging. And, you know, representative government doesn't work without opportunities to engage. And obviously we reach out to people as much as we can. But opportunities like this provide for anyone, regardless of whether you have a relationship with us before or not, to be able to come here, ask hard questions, expect answers and you're welcome to reach out anytime. If you didn't like an answer, or if you didn't get a question answered, want to follow up, set up a meeting, we can do that. I mean, like Chris had a pretty big question here about healthcare, and we're going to have to sit down and talk about that in more depth because we could take the whole hour answering that one question. So it is really an honor to serve you, and really wonderful. It's enjoyable to me, and to work with my two seatmates is incredible. We have a great team here in the 7th District. And so I did want to talk about one bill I got passed this year. I got two. One was the healthcare bill I mentioned earlier. The other was a bill that essentially puts a warranty on license plates. Who here has seen a license plate where the paint is peeling off the coating? Well, I have this bill that puts a warranty on those, says if it's less than 2 years old, you get a free replacement. Less than 5 years old, it's a discounted replacement plate. The state has been charging $82 to replace these plates, and they cost the state $6.76. Interestingly, when had the fiscal note on the bill, the Department of Licensing estimates that there's going to be 9, as in less than 10, people per year that will be needing a new license plate as a result of this bill. So they said they think they'll lose $600 a year in lost revenue. It's certainly going to be more than that. I think you're all in the room, and so You know, I did tell the chairman it's going to be more than 9, but I appreciate you all coming out. Whoever wrote this fiscal note hasn't been to Eastern Washington. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. For those of you who don't know, this is my husband's home turf. His great-grandfather settled, was one of the original settling homesteaders in the Methow Valley. This is a place that we call home. My husband joked that our daughter couldn't date anyone over here because we were probably related. I think that was just an excuse when she was a teenager, though. But honestly, what I appreciate is your sharing from your heart the issues that concern you, making sure that we stay focused on the things that you want us to, and to continue conversation, because we might not agree on something now, but that doesn't mean that we might not in the future. And the thing I appreciate is all of you coming out. Continue to have conversations with us. We want to. This is the best part of what we do, is being here with all of you and fighting for you in whatever way that is. When we go to Olympia, it's such an honor, and thank you so much for the privilege of representing you in Olympia. Thank you.
All right, so that concludes it. I'm going to hang around if anybody has questions for me. Yeah.